Welcome to another edition of the Speaking of Speaking podcast. It's time to cash flow what you know. I'm your host, Kelly Charles Collins. So, speaking of speaking, today we're going to be talking about how you really build a sustainable business based on what you know, based on your expertise. And the way that you're going to do that is to use speaking. So, one of the things that I know is that the ability to communicate effectively, the ability to communicate powerfully is what is going to sustain you in your business. And I don't care what kind of business it is, whether you're an entrepreneur or you're in corporate. You'll see that throughout these episodes, I might be talking about a topic that will just is like really focused in on being a professional speaker. But even if that's not what you want, I want you to really think about how could I leverage the things that Kelly is saying to help me? Because many of you want to have professional speaking businesses where you get paid to speak, that is your main source of income. Some of you are coaches, like many of my clients, they're coaches. And so while speaking is part of the business, they're generally using speaking to generate leads. So they want to be on stages where they can sell their services to the audience, but they have to use speaking. So that's all part of the speaking business. So whether you're speaking to get paid or getting paid to speak, all of these things are going to apply to you. It also applies if you still want to stay in your corporate role, but you want to add on speaking as part of your business. And the reason I want to say is add on speaking as part of your business is because I want you to start thinking about speaking as a business. And I want you to start thinking about this is for my lawyers, for my doctors, for my accountants, for you all who have this deep level of expertise, like especially in these professional service businesses, and people are always asking you to come and speak. They're always asking you to, can you come and share this with our audience? Can you come and share this with our team, whatever? And because you are already getting paid to speak, because you're already getting paid in your profession, you're just like, oh, yeah, let me just show up. Let me just show up on your stage. Let me just come give all this goodness to you for free. I want to shift you to start thinking about when people are asking you that, though you are getting that good check over there, that they should also be giving you a good check over here. They should also be paying because you are using your expertise. This podcast is all about cash flowing what you know, and in all the ways that you can cash flow what you know. You can cash flow it through speaking, through books, through media, through podcasting, through developing products, whatever it is. What you are doing is taking what's in your brilliant brain, creating an intellectual masterpiece that you then go out there and share with the world that is going to create intrigue, transform them, and shift them. And so you should be compensated for that. And so what we're going to be talking about today is my P6 framework, and it's the way that I work with my clients to help them develop this whole ecosystem around leveraging speaking to build their business, their brand, and their bank accounts. So that's what I'm going to be teaching you today. So get your notes, get your whatever you need to take notes so that you can implement. And I want you to really understand that, again, you can use this in any part of your business, even if you have a law firm. And you'll hear me talk about lawyers all the time because I am one, a retired one, but I am one. And I have a soft spot because one of the things that I know from practicing law is we have a saying in the law that the law is a jealous mistress, meaning she don't want you doing anything else. They just want you to be stuck to doing law. And I am glad that I did not take that on. I'm also glad that I did not take on being a lawyer as my identity. I always told people being a lawyer is what I did for a living, not who I was as a person. And so when I did lose my job in 2019, and I'll tell you about that in another episode, when I did lose my job, I lost my job. I didn't lose my identity. And because I had already been planning what I needed to do in order to transition, which, by the way, if you have not watched the episode about me talking about transitioning from employee to entrepreneur, go watch it. When I lost my job, I had already been putting these types of things that I'm going to talk about today in place. And so I didn't lose my identity and I didn't lose my will to move forward. And as we go through all of these episodes, as I start to record more episodes, what I want you to really pay attention to are the things that I'm teaching you around process and mindset and strategy. I am a true strategist. I am very intentional about what I do. I build a lot of frameworks. I often speak in frameworks. And I want you to pay attention to those things. So when you come in to these episodes, be tuned in, be all in, and make sure that you're subscribed to the podcast so that you don't miss the episodes. They'll drop every Thursday at around 9 a.m. So you don't want to miss it. And you want to be tuned in. You want to be locked in. And today is a day for you to be locked in. So let's get into it. Let's talk about the P6 framework. So the P6 framework is positioning, prospecting, pitching, pricing, packaging, and presentation skills. Those are the 6 Ps that we're going to be talking about today. So I'm going to run through them. I'm going to give you as much detail as I can, but I don't want to leave you here forever. But I want to give you enough so that you can go out and implement. And also remember, you have the opportunity, if you are on my email list, if you join the SOS newsletter, so speaking of speaking newsletter, if you join there, you can ask me questions and I will answer that question either on the podcast or I will answer it in the newsletter. You can also comment on YouTube, but on Saturdays, you'll get the newsletter. So I will be paying attention to that. And so I'll know that you've sent me a question. Newsletter.com to subscribe. Let's get into it. Let's get into this P6 framework and let's talk about these 6 Ps. And we're going to start with the first P, which is positioning, positioning, positioning. Positioning is the key to being a highly paid, sought after speaker, trainer, consultant, coach, whatever it is that you're trying to be. It is positioning. And different from when people say you're branding, your brand is a part of positioning. But when I'm talking about positioning, I'm talking about a much broader spectrum of things that you need to be paying attention to. When we're talking about positioning and when I work with clients around their positioning, yes, I am talking about your brand, but we don't get to your brand, the aesthetics of your brand. Like you see all my brand colors here and you see my branding behind me. You don't get to that until we do the internal work. Because brands are designed from the inside out. Most people, they just design their brand. Oh, let me pick some colors or let me pick a font. People tell you stuff like that. No, brands are built from the inside out. And so that inside piece is what we call the positioning. So when you think about positioning, when I'm talking to you about positioning, I'm talking about the whats, the whos, the whys, the hows. So let's talk about that. When we're talking about positioning in terms of what, I'm talking about what do you want to do? What is the impact that you want to create? What is the legacy that you want to leave? One of my favorite poems is The Dash, and it talks about the dash between the year that you were born and the year that you die. And how will people think of you? What will they say about how you lived your dash? What did you do? And so when we're talking about positioning, and when I'm working with clients, and I work with clients who, and women mostly, especially women, and I have obviously an affinity for Black women. What I am really doing with that is ensuring that you are doing legacy work. Right? We are doing legacy work. For me, this is all about elevating you, elevating your influence, elevating your authority, really setting you up to be powerful. So when we're talking about positioning, I'm talking about powerful positioning that causes you to be a person of influence. And in order to do that, we have to go through these things to figure out what is it that you really want to create in the world? What is the impact that you want to leave? Yes, we all want to make money. Listen, I want to make money. I want this to be a multi-7-figure business. I sure do. And this is part of it. This work that I'm doing with this podcast is part of that legacy and how I'm going to get there, part of the plan, part of the positioning. But I had to do this work that I'm going to talk to you about in order to be able to figure out, okay, this is what it's going to be. This is going to be the Speaking of Speaking podcast. This is going to be the Speaking of Speaking newsletter. I had to figure out what it is I want to do. I also have to know who. Who do I want to be? Who do I want to be? Who do I want to be in this world and in this work? Because if you do not know that, then you're just going to be all over the place. Who do I have to become? So one of the things when I practiced law, I tried cases all day. I did depositions. I did all the things. But who did I have to become to become the keynote speaker that I wanted, to be the award-winning TEDx speaker, to be the multi-time author that I wanted to be featured in ABC and NBC and CBS and all the things? Who did I need to become in order to do that? That's work that I had to do. Is work I still do. I still do this type of work. The positioning is always, I'm always working on my positioning. That is a living, breathing thing. It's like your brand. It's a living, breathing thing. So it's the what, it's the who, it's the how. How am I going to do it? Right? So I know that you want to, whatever you decide that you want to create, like I knew that I was leaving my job as a lawyer to pursue my purpose, and the purpose was for others to stand, to be the light for others to stand in their greatness. I know that's my purpose. My purpose is to be the light for others to stand in their greatness. So how do I do that? How do I effectuate that purpose? How do I make sure that I am the light? And I had to think about, how am I going to do that? And since becoming an entrepreneur, I've done it in many ways. I've done it as a speaker. I've done it as a trainer. I've done it as somebody who ran a women's community called Ladies Who Leverage and brought women together. I've done it as a mentor and as a strategist with my clients in Thought Leaders Circle. I did it with my clients in Thought Leaders Circle of being the light and putting them on the stage, right? Helping them to develop their signature talks, and then developing a conference that highlighted them and put them on stage so that they had video and audio and photos and testimonials. But if I did not know what my purpose was, I didn't know why I'm doing this work, why I'm doing the things that I'm doing, I don't know how I'm going to do that. So I needed to understand so that I knew how. And I knew that for me, the how was speaking. Inside of speaking, though, is it as a keynote speaker? Is it as a corporate trainer? Is it as a media mogul? Is it as an author? Is it as a coach? Is it as a strategist? Is it as a combination of those things? And what I've found is that it really is a combination of those things. And some things may be all at once, and sometimes it's this thing or this thing. And so you have to know how it is that you want to work, how it is that you want to position yourself. The how is also, how do you want to position yourself in the market? I'm always talking about, I used to talk about it a lot more. I don't do it as much anymore, but talking about being in the penthouse of your client's mind. Not just being someone who's just out here, you're just one of many everywhere. No, being in the penthouse of their mind as the one, the person, the go-to person. That person, like you want to be that chick that when they're thinking about it, you're the only person. Like for me, when y'all are thinking about how do I elevate my authority and my influence, how do I really take what's in my mind and reframe it into what I call an intellectual masterpiece, I want to be that chick for you. I want to be that woman that you come to, that you're like, Kelly, I am ready. This is what I need to do. I need to craft my signature talk. I need to figure out how I'm going to write a book or start a podcast or do it, get in the media. Like anything around being like this icon, right? In terms of being an influential person in the world, that's the positioning that I want for me. And so I got to figure out, how do I do that? How do I position myself so that people know that? And one of the ways for me is to do this podcast. So again, I'm showing you through my own experience as I'm teaching you, because I want you to know that I'm doing the things that I'm talking to you about, or I have done the things. All right. One of the other things that you need to know, and this is vitally important, and when I work with clients, we spend a lot of time on this. Sometimes they don't like it because I really dig in. And it usually brings people to tears. And it is to uncover your why. Uncover your why. This is so important, y'all. So important because why do you want to do the thing? Why? Why does this matter to you? Why do you want to speak? Why do you want to be a coach? Why? Why do you want to be an author? Why do you want to be a consultant? Why do you want to be a workshop warrior, as I call them? Why? Why are you doing the thing? Why are you focused on this particular topic? Why are you focused on leadership? Why are you focused on mental health? Why are you focused on finance? Why are you focused on relationships? Why are you focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion? Why? Why is that important to you? And so we do the whole exercise. It's based on the 5 whys, which started with Toyota. I asked you more than 5 whys, get on your nerves. But it's because I went through this exercise with my own coach. I hired somebody. He wasn't a long-time coach. We did this session. I hired somebody to help me do this session to really uncover my why. Because people would ask me, why do you do this? Because I want to help women. I want women to win. And that was always the thing. He didn't like that. He thought that was surface level, which he was. And after 4 hours, y'all, 4 hour session, we drilled all the way down to the point where I was just like, because I want to make sure that women's value is not erased. That's it. That's it. I do all of this. I share all of these things. I work with women and to help you to really elevate your voice and your authority because I want to ensure that your value is not erased. That's my why. So that's the type of work that you need to do to get to that very level. And that's part of positioning. The other part of the why in positioning is why should anybody care enough to pay you for that? A lot of y'all want to talk about stuff and you're like, oh, I got a story to tell. And you think that that's your positioning. I got a story. I got fired. Like I got fired too. Not once. I got fired before. Don't nobody want to hear that? That's not proper positioning. That's part of the story. That's part of what I teach and part of how I share. But it's not the positioning. Like I don't want to be the woman who got fired. Nobody wants to hear that. They're not going to pay you for that. But what they will pay me for is how I used that. How did I come out of that? How do I use that to show them how they can, as women, transition from, or anybody transition from employee to entrepreneur? What are the strategies that I used? If it's a corporation, how can you use some of those strategies to ensure that the people that were working for you don't want to leave because I wanted to leave? Or how do you support people in the journey? They didn't support me in the journey, so that made me want to leave even more. They could have helped me, and it could have been a win-win situation. So nobody cares about your story. What they care about is what they care about. What they care about are their problems. What you have to know about your audience is that they have a current state and a desired state. I call this the bridge framework. They have a current state and a desired state, and you got to figure out how you're the bridge. And positioning and understanding all of the who, what, whys, where's, whens, how helps you with that positioning so that you can be that bridge. You can be the solution. The solution. I had a friend who, my really good friend, and she was saying to me, no, you're not a solution. You are the solution. Right? So positioning helps you to put yourself out there as the solution. So let's move on because listen, I could talk to you about a whole bunch of stuff around this. And I do when I work with you. But positioning is really about authority elevation. It is about influence building. It is about branding. And it is about understanding who you are and who you want to be in the world. What is the impact that you want to create and the legacy that you want to leave behind? So that's positioning. Prospecting. Prospecting is part of the sales cycle. Now, here's the thing. A lot of speakers, a lot of people who are in the speaking business or who want to use speaking for their business don't think about the fact that you got to do sales. Like a lot of this whole thing is just sales and marketing. This much of what we do is being on stage and actually doing the work. This much is what we do behind the scenes to actually get on stage. Oh, and let me say back to positioning. I don't know how I forgot this. I did talk about it a little bit, but your signature talk, your signature message, that's part of positioning because that's the thing that people are going to pay you for. I'll do a whole deep dive on signature talks, but that is essential to your positioning. That's the messaging that's going to be able to be delivered so that they will want to pay you. So now, as we go into prospecting, because we're looking at in part of positioning, like who and how we want to do this, part of that is like, who are the people that you want to deliver these messages to? Whose lives do you want to change? Who do you want to impact? And that helps you to understand who you need to prospect. This is not just a spray and pray. If you want to be a highly sought after thought leader, somebody of influence and authority that people are going to pay and pay good money, then you have to have a target. And so when you have your positioning all together, that will help you to decide who is this target. So in the second P, we're talking about prospecting. This is about building the pipeline. This is about figuring out who are those people and where do I find them? Sometimes they're in your phone. Sometimes they're at that old job. Sometimes there is a friend of a friend or in your family. Sometimes they're on LinkedIn. They're in your social media followings. Sometimes you don't know them yet. But what you do when you're prospecting is really to identify the types of people. You might be identifying the types of people by industry. You might be identifying them by job title. You might be identifying them by the transformation that they're seeking. So you are looking for the who. You may also, though, in prospecting, be looking for the what, because if you want to be on stages, you might be looking for conferences. You might be looking for the types of associations. You might be looking for different types of events. So prospecting is not just about looking for people, it might be looking for places. And so when you're doing your prospecting, think about prospecting as this is your lead generation. This is where you're finding the people. This is the first part of the sales process. Sales and marketing are the biggest parts of this business. And when we did the exercise around, for me, around finding out my why, and I was talking about women's value not being erased, part of what I was learning, part of what I was seeing and experiencing being a professional speaker and watching colleagues is that women and especially Black women do not understand the business of speaking. If you go watch the video where I talk about going from employee to the episode where I talk about going from employee to entrepreneur, I tell you that I already knew how to speak, so I needed to understand the business of speaking. That was one of the best things that I ever did because when you don't understand the business of speaking, you become just talent. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more when I get to pricing. Let me just pull myself. I want to tell y'all everything, but let me pull myself back into prospecting. But I'll talk to you about that, the CEO versus talent. But in prospecting, you really want to develop the pipeline of people who could be potentials. And when you know who you are, who you want to be, what the impact is, the problems that you solve, how you're going to solve them, and who you solve them for, then you can really hone in on the people. Because when you're talking about the people, there's two types of people when you're prospecting, especially as a thought leader, especially somebody who wants to build influence. And if you want to be in corporate spaces as a trainer, as a keynote speaker, as a consultant, you got to know that there's a paying audience and a consuming audience. And so when you're prospecting, because this is part of the sales process, right? Who can pay me? Then you want to be prospecting for your paying audience, not your consuming audience, your paying audience. All right. So the other side of the prospecting is the third P, which is pitching. Pitching also part of the sales cycle. So when we figure out who our prospects are, people who could potentially pay us, people who have the problem that you're trying to solve and for whom you are the solution, the next thing to do is take that list, take that pipeline of people and pitch them. Let's talk about pitching. Do not make the mistake with pitching of, oh, this is where I'm just going to tell you everything about me. Pitching is to get attention. Pitching is to create intrigue. Pitching is to get them on a call where you can then talk to them about all the things. So when you're pitching, whether it's cold pitching or warm pitching, whether it's email pitching, you're pitching by phone, you're pitching by video, you're doing it by social media, you're in people's DMs, you're out at networking events. You want to just give them enough information about you to establish your credibility, about what you speak about or train about or consult about or coach on, so that they know that they can opt in. They opt in because, yes, you're speaking to me. And hey, would you like to get on a call so we could talk about this more? So it is not your resume. It is not spreading your peacock feathers, as I normally say. It's not about that. It's not about, let me just tell you about everything. I've seen people who teach around pitching and they're like, oh, yeah, send this entire long email. No, no, we ain't doing that. The pitch is supposed to be something that just gives them a quick hit, dopamine hit, where they're like, yes, I need to talk to you. I need to have a conversation with you. I need to see what you're up to and whether or not you can support me. So that's what the pitch is. And obviously, there's ways to pitch and all the different types of things that you can do around pitching. But the goal of the pitch is to get them into a different conversation, to get them into a sales conversation. The pitch is not the sales conversation. The pitch is to get attention, to get them in a call so that you can then have a sales conversation where you can do all the things, right? You can have all the conversations. And so when I talk to my clients about pitching and prospecting, I talk to them about the 3 C's. So converting contacts into contracts, this is how you can convert contacts into contracts. And the one is to connect. So once I find out, once I get my list of prospects, what I want to do then is to start connecting with them. I want to connect with them. I want to connect with them on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on TikTok, or wherever. If you're going to be in the corporate space, you definitely have to be on LinkedIn. That's where the decision makers are. Facebook, wherever it is, but make sure that you're at least on LinkedIn. And LinkedIn is really easy to get people to connect with you, especially if you positioned yourself well and you have a presence on LinkedIn. You don't have to do nothing fancy except click a button. They don't care. You don't have to do a whole message like, oh my God, I love you and I've seen. Don't just click connect. They will go look at they'll go look and see if they want to connect with you. So the first thing you want to do is connect. Then you want to cultivate that relationship. So this is all part of sales. You want to cultivate the relationship. You can comment on their posts. You can send them if you have, you see an article, maybe they work for a company and you've seen an article or you've written an article or you've written a book or you've done a video, you've done a master class, you have something of value that you want to share with them that would be great for them. Send it to them. Send it to them for free. Create an infographic. Do something. Just really cultivate the relationship. Comment on their post. If you do a video, don't do this unless you know the person really and they've agreed. Don't tag people. I hate when people tag me just on every post that they. I don't want to see everything that you do. If you're tagging me because you mentioned me, that's one thing. If you're tagging me because in, okay, but don't just tag me as a matter of practice. And especially when you're doing this for decision makers, don't do it. Really cultivate the relationship in a way that is respectful and in a way that people want to respond to you. They don't feel that you're just like, oh my God, here she is again. So make sure that, especially when you go in people's DMs, and don't send people just random videos, be very intentional and strategic. And then the last thing is closing. And so once the last C of those 3 C's is closing. So it's connect, cultivate, close. When you get to the close, that's when you have this sales conversation and there's the proposal stage, negotiations, all that to actually close. But those are the 3 C's to convert your contacts into contracts. So we've done the first P was positioning, second P is prospecting, third P is pitching. And then we're going to get to our fourth P right now, which is all about pricing. Where the money reside, where the money reside, where the money reside. And this is what people always want to know about, where the money resides. But remember, when I talked about positioning, for you to even get to this point, people have to want to pay you. Like they have to really want to pay you for something. And so when you're talking about pricing, it is important for you to understand paying audience, consuming audience. It's important for you to understand that you have to have something to sell, your signature talk, your signature presentation, your consulting offer. You have to have something that people want, not just something that you think is good. And this is why your story doesn't really do much for people, because nobody paying you for your story unless you're Sully who landed the plane in the New York River or whatever he did, or you're Michelle Obama and Barack Obama, and now, Kamala, who will be paid, right, for her story. You're not that person. Not right now. Not yet. But we working on it. I'm working on developing iconic women who are those types of people who people will just want to pay you for your story. But for right now, where are we at right now? We are getting paid for our expertise and cash flowing what we know. And so when we're talking about pricing, we want to make sure that we are pricing according to the value that we are giving to our clients. We don't want to price by the hour, because experts, thought leaders do not price by the hour. A lot of you are like, oh, when I ask you, especially coaching, I ask my clients, how much? What's the coaching? Oh, it's $125 an hour. Or I ask speakers. I remember I asked a speaker one time, I was like, so what's your fee? And she was like, $444. I'm like, to do what? And why 444? And here's the thing, don't be cute. Don't be cute. You're talking to businesses, especially when you're going into corporate. You are talking to multi-million dollar, multi-billion dollar global organizations. They're not here for the cute. They're here about their business and about their bottom line. And so, what they want to know is that you understand the gravity of their problems, and that when you say that your fee is this amount, that you understand that it's going to take something and it takes some value to be able to do that. So many of you are afraid to price high because you think pricing high is going to price you out. Pricing low will price you out more than pricing high. Because if you're working with a corporation and they have a retention issue, for example, retention issues are tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of dollars to a business. And so if they're having a real retention issue and you're somebody who says, yeah, I can help you with employee engagement and productivity, yada, yada, yada. And they're like, oh, this is awesome. I cannot wait. Cannot wait for you to come in, work with our team. How much? What's it going to cost me? And you're like, $1,500. You ain't getting it. They'll be like, thanks. Thanks, but no thanks. You're not getting it, because they know 1,500. If you don't understand the value of the transformation, you can't fix their problem. So if you think that this is just it's just $1,500, right? Your expertise is only worth $1,500 to solve thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars worth of problems, then you're not for them. Right? So you got to make sure that you understand. This is why you got to do the work. This is why you got to do the positioning work. This is why you have to have the signature talk or the signature presentation, so that you truly understand the shifts, the transformations that you're going to create, so that you can price accordingly. This is not personal. This is not this is this business. And so when you think about it being like, I've never made that much money, I'm just speaking is a whole different ball game. Which brings me to the point that there are no rules when it comes to pricing. I know there's stuff on the internet. I know that there's stuff out there where people are like, oh, you need to, if you're just starting zero, then, if you're just starting out, then it's zero. And if you're, after you do a certain number of, then you can charge like 1,500, or new speakers are paid 500 to 3,500. And then tier two speakers are paid this. And then there's bullshit. There's no such thing. I don't care what nobody tells you. There is no such thing. It's made up. Pricing in the speaking business is made up. Why do some people get paid $250,000 to speak for 15 minutes? And some of you out here are speaking for 3 and 4 hours and getting a bag of chips? Because of positioning. Because of your authority and your influence. It ain't got nothing to do with being tier one, tier two, just speaking for 5 years as opposed to be. It ain't got nothing to do with that. Because here's the thing. All of you who are listening here, the people who I attract have a deep level of expertise. You've been doing things, you've been up to things. You have degrees, you have certifications, you have personal experience, you have professional experience. So you're no slouch. You are no slouch. So it's not that you are a new speaker. Some of you maybe, but for the most part, you're not a new speaker when you come to me. You've been speaking in your role, whatever you're doing. You're new to the business of professional speaking, and that's a whole different thing. We're going to take all the skills and pull them over here. So when we're talking about pricing, we have to make sure that we understand what is the skill set that we bring to the table, and we price based on that. We price based on that value. All right. Now I could go all in about a whole lot of stuff about this, but I don't want to keep you here too long. So if you have questions, newsletter, drop them in the newsletter, and I'll do another podcast about it. Okay. What do I have my notes? I want to see that I give you everything that I have on my notes. Oh, I do want to say something about value versus worth. A lot of people talk about, oh, get paid your worth. You'll never get paid your worth. Worth is intrinsic. Nobody can ever pay you what you're worth. That is a personal thing. What they can pay you is the value. When you're talking about speaking and you're talking about training, consulting, and coaching and all of that, it's a value exchange. What is the value that we're exchanging? Right. And that is how you price when you're thinking about speaking. All right. Packaging. So we went through positioning, prospecting, pitching, pricing. We're now at packaging. Packaging is different from pricing. Packaging is how do you package all of your positioning? How do you put it together? How do you put together all of the positioning? How do you put together the pricing? How do you put that together in an offer in a way that people want to purchase it? That people want to work with you as a coach, that people want to hire you as a keynote speaker, as a trainer, and packaging offers. You could do all kinds of different things. There's no one way to do it. There are best practices around it. You could have tiered offers, you can have value adds, you can have experiences. And so you can, instead of just it being, oh, I have this training, I'm doing this experience, it's all in the way, it's the packaging. Think about when you go shopping. That's packaging. Why do people pay so much money, thousands and thousands of dollars for a Louis bag that is coated canvas? It ain't even leather, y'all. It's coated canvas. They'll pay all that money for that, for Louis, instead of just going over to Walmart or somewhere and getting a like off-brand, no brand coated canvas. Because it's the packaging, it's the status, it's the aesthetic, it's the, what comes with it, it's the positioning. Louis Vuitton has positioned coated canvas as a luxury because it has their LV and all that. And what did they do in order to do that? They did the positioning work to understand who, the what, the where, the why, the how can we get people to pay all this money for this? T-shirts. T-shirts, because it has Balmain or something on it. The same T-shirt. So just so y'all know, I have a degree in fashion merchandising and retailing management. That's what my undergrad degree is in. So I love fashion. A lot of these things are made in the same places, the same factories. It's just you get it over here for Walmart, you get it over here for Louis, you get it over here for this one. They may use like a little higher grade of cotton or a higher grade of canvas or whatever, but they're made in the same place and they just have a different stamp and a different tag on it, and we pay the money. So this is why packaging is important. You can just say, I have this, I do this talk, I could talk about this, I can help your people do this. Or you can say, listen, I have a whole framework, right, that I use to make sure that the process is repeatable. For example, when I work with my clients to help them craft their signature talks, my sister and I have developed an entire process called the Signature Talk Black Print. It has 4 phases. Nobody else has it. Nobody else teaches you how to craft a talk like I do. Nobody else teaches you to craft a talk, not just as talent, but as a CEO. We have that, right? And once you learn it, it is a repeatable process. You can do it over and over again. You can use it to build anything. You can build coaching programs. You can write books. You can develop products. I've done it. You see those books and stuff behind me? That's all comes out of my processes, out of my formats, my frameworks, right? And it's the same thing. My clients do the same thing. My clients are writing books. They're on stages speaking. I have a client, and I'll talk about my client some more in other episodes, but maybe I'll have them on. And going to Dubai and Paris to speak and getting funding for projects, all using their signature talk. So it's about having this process and this framework. So when I'm talking to clients, I'm talking whether it's corporate, I have frameworks that I use with corporate to help them help leaders understand how to speak, how to create buy-in, how to really communicate effectively and powerfully so that they can lead confidently, so that they can influence outcomes, right? That's all part of the packaging. And then I have books where I can say, listen, not only will I come in and do this training, I have books, I have products, I have cards, I have things that can really help sustain the learning beyond while I'm here. That's part of the packaging. That's part of developing an ecosystem. One of my things that I'm really passionate about with my clients is developing an ecosystem so that when it comes to the pitching and then having the sales call, that you don't just have this one thing. You can put a package together based on what it is that they need because you have all of these things. And it's not hard to create all of these things. It can be hard and time consuming, but it's doable if you understand and you have somebody who's done it. I've written books, I've developed products, I have been on stages, I've done corporate, I've been in the media, you name it, I've done it. I've published a magazine. I also published podcasts. So you want to be in spaces with people who have done the things so that they can help you to package it the right way so that a maybe a keynote that was $5,000, or I don't do $5,000 keynotes, my clients, you'll need to be like at least 7,500, and really I push them to be at 10. I always say add a comma and a zero to your prices, is to really push them. So if you have a keynote that's 10,000, say that's the number that you can say. And I always say the number that it is the number that you can say and shut your mouth and say nothing else. That's the actual number and the value of your product at that time. Doesn't mean it will always be. So say you do your keynotes for 10,000, or you do a training, a 60-minute, 45-minute, 30-minute training, and it's $10,000. Yes, you can get $10,000 for 30 minutes, right? But you're like, man, I could really, that might be one tier. Okay, I'm just going to do a training. But you're talking to a corporation that has money. Wouldn't you like a $50,000 contract or a $100,000 contract? The way that you get there is to have an ecosystem of things that you can package together in order to increase that from a $10,000 potential contract to maybe a $50,000 contract. So I work with my clients to around those things. So that's packaging. There's more, but that I just wanted to give you a sense of what I mean by packaging. And the last P is presentation skills. This is talent. This is showing up on stage. This is doing the work. This is being in front of the people. The first thing that you have to understand is the people. When we're talking about presentation skills, your audience. Remember I said when I was talking about prospecting, paying audience and consuming audience, this is where your consuming audience comes in. This is where you have to worry about them because they're the ones who are going to receive the message. So when you're doing positioning, you also have to identify who these people are, because in positioning, remember I talked about authority elevation, that's marketing. So you're also marketing and talking to them in your content, but when it comes to the actual presentation, they are the star. You're not the star. You're the vessel. You're on stage. You're not the star. What you want to make sure that when you're presenting is that you're marrying people to the mission and the message, not the messenger. You're not marrying people to you. This is very important for you to understand. It's important for you to understand because if you get that in your head, marry people to the mission and the message, not the messenger, then when you are developing your talks, when you are getting on stage, one, it takes away the angst of, oh, everybody's looking at me. And two, it makes you understand that the people in the audience are who are important and that you are delivering this message for them and you're showing up for them. And so if you have to show up for them, it takes some of the pressure off of you. It takes away the performance aspect, right, of the presentation and really sits you in your role as the thought leader, as this vessel for people. And so, presentation, here's some quick tips. One, strive to be powerful, not perfect. I tell this to my clients all the time. My clients, when we did the Iconic Talks conference, my clients who are in my thought leader circle, and I did that with them, that's what I told them every day. And before they got on stage, be powerful, not perfect. I'm a perfectionist, so I know. But the goal is to be powerful, not perfect. The other goal is to be you, unapologetically you. So if you are a person who dresses casually, dress casually. If you're a person who likes to wear suits, if you like to wear glitter and glam, wear glam. If you like to wear heels, wear them. If you want to wear sneakers, wear them. I wear Converse because my feet can't take heels no more. Just be you on stage. That's who they're looking for. And for those of you, corporate, my corporate girlies, when you come out of corporate and you come into this space as a thought leader, the corporation's not looking for you to be corporate. They got them already. They got them in their in-house. They're looking for you to be a thought leader. They're looking for you to be different, to bring in a different type of energy, a different perspective, right? So just be unapologetically you, right? When you're presenting. Y'all have seen people out here who can't present worth shit. You don't want to be that person. You want to really be an authentic person. People out here who are also trying to be other people. They see all these speakers who've been paid, who've gotten all this money and been around for years, and they're like, oh, I'm going to mimic them. I'm going to mimic their thought, their body language. I'm going to mimic their speech patterns. Don't do that. Don't do it. You're not them. Just be you. You want to be paid and to be valued to be you. So, presentation too is not just about the mechanics. A lot of people teach you about the mechanics of speaking. So, they teach you about rate, tone, pitch, body language. Those are important. But you also have to understand the strategy of communication, the strategy of speaking. If you want to be an influential communicator, and this is what I teach, is that you have to understand both the mechanics and the strategy is what is going to drive the mechanics. That's a whole nother lesson for a whole nother day. All right. So then what's the last thing I want to talk to you about this? Oh, the last thing I want to say around this is don't worry about when to the point of being powerful, not perfect. Don't overly worry about filler words. People sometimes, oh, you got to get all the filler words out. No, you don't. No, you don't. Because when you're speaking, when you're on stage, when you're communicating with people, you're having a conversation. When I'm on stage, I'm having a conversation with you. And so what? Guess what? Some filler words gonna drop in there. There goes one. That is probably the biggest filler word that I use. But I don't worry about it because I don't use it all the time. And it's not like I'm saying, and then okay, and right. Now, if you're doing it all the time, if you're doing it all the time and it takes away from the message, then you need to work on it. But don't try to completely sanitize your speech, your presentation, the conversation that you're having. Just show up and be human. That's what people are looking for. They're looking for you to be human. And these 6 P's, sis, these are the P's that you need. These are the P's that you need to be able to be successful in this business, to be successful in this knowledge business, to be able to cash flow what you know. It's all about positioning, prospecting, pitching, pricing, packaging, and presentation skills. So that's it for now. That's it for this episode. I want to make sure that you don't miss any of the episodes. So make sure that you're subscribed to the podcast. Also, make sure that you subscribe to the Speaking of Speaking newsletter. You can go to sosnewsletter.com. And also, don't be selfish. Don't keep this all to yourself. I'm a gem dropper around here. Make sure that you share this. Share this with 3 people. Share this with 5 people. Share it with, I don't know, however many people, and make sure that they subscribe to the podcast and to the newsletter. And also remember that in the newsletter, which comes out every Saturday, there is an opportunity for you to ask me questions. There's an Ask Kelly question section. So if you have a question about this episode or any of the other episodes, make sure that you drop it in that form, and I might answer that question on the podcast or in the newsletter. Until next time, Take care. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to check the show notes for any links or resources from this episode. If you enjoyed it, leave a review, drop a comment, and subscribe so you never miss an update. Also, follow me on LinkedIn and subscribe to our newsletter for more behind the scenes content. Stay tuned for our next episode.